Don't really need that. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Grand Rising. So the theme for 2024 is Grand Rising. The theme for May is From Good to Great to Grand. Close. Is this better? Okay. Topic for today, the steps we take. First, from Reverend Dr. Christian Sorensen. When you live in alignment with your soul, your most authentic self, loving who you truly are, you will bring your realization back into oneness with people, the planet, and the universe. You'll live knowing an internal peace and be a loving difference maker on the planet. And the second quote is from Chris Franken. Alignment is a vibration, a movement of energy that feels grounded and enlightened and propels you gracefully forward towards your values. So let's affirm together. My outer life exists in alignment with the truth of my most authentic self. And I want to introduce Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson.
Good to great to grand. From good to great to grand. And today our topic is the steps we take. And it's really about living in alignment with the divine. So I'm really clear why we're here. I'm very clear why we're here. We're gathered here for a very high and holy purpose. We're gathered here to evolve in consciousness. Yes? Yeah. To evolve in consciousness and realizing that that is an ongoing process, no matter how enlightened we think we are. There's always more. There's always more growth, expansion, and unfoldment. And we are here today to be guided by vision, co-creating heaven and earth, a world that works for all, through living our spiritual values. So I have a story to share with you. A mother one day was making pancakes for her two sons, Kevin, age 5, and Ryan, age 3. And they began arguing over who would get the first pancake. Sound familiar to anybody? Anybody with children? So the mother decided this is a great opportunity to teach values. So she said, if Jesus were sitting here, he would say, give the first pancake to my brother. And so Kevin turned to Ryan and said, Kevin, the older brother, turned to the little brother and said, Ryan, you get to be Jesus. So much for values, right? So values, we've been talking about a value-led life, which is a way of living in alignment with the divine. And so today I'm going to be talking about the, what alignment is, the steps that we take. I'm using 2 steps, intention and activating our intentions. And so I'd like to begin first with talking about what is alignment. I mean, we probably all know what alignment is, but let's just take a look at it. It's a state of being or state of mind where our thoughts, beliefs, and actions and our words are all working seamlessly together in alignment with our divine self, our spiritual values. So the 2 steps of treatment, spiritual mind treatment, the prayer that Carolyn so beautifully demonstrated for us today and spoke for us today. The first 2 steps are recognition and unification. And recognition is where we make statements of truth about the divine to the best of our ability in that moment. And so God is infinite life, the infinite invisible source of all that exists. Statements like that. Because as we make those statements, practice it yourself. As you think about God, the nature of God, the all-encompassing presence, the presence of infinite love and all possibility and all potentiality, what happens? The mind expands. Our concept expands. And so we start with that. That's recognition. And then unification. And I am that life, individualized. If God is omnipresence, all that is, then I am that life. And then we know from mystics and from those who study quantum reality, the physicists, that there's one unified field out of which everything arises. And the totality of it is present in every spot. As we contemplate this truth, as we speak this truth, our mind expands. And we stand in alignment then with who we are in truth and what the presence of the divine is in truth. We embody that through the power of our words, the power of our focus. So those first two steps of treatment really set us up then to co-create with the divine, to be an open channel for divine inspiration to flow through us and as us. Alignment, so powerful. I love this analogy of alignment that Todd Michael offers in the 12 Conditions of a Miracle. I love that book. I actually did a whole talk series on it a few years ago, all based on the parable of the fishes and the loaves, the 12 conditions of a miracle that he offers. But this is what he says. He says, alignment is analogous to what a sailor does with a sailboat. So if you can imagine, the currents of winds and water can get pretty wild all around the sailor. Constantly changing, difficult to predict, and totally out of control. Out of his control. Well, to a certain extent. And at the same time, the sailor has experience and knows what to do. Knows how to trim the sails and adjust the rudder so that the current carries him exactly where he wants to go. What a great analogy for our lives, right? So the currents of life, all the random events that take place all around us, within us, all around us, etc., and we have spiritual tools, spiritual principles, spiritual practices that help us to trim the sails and adjust the rudder, right? That's our way of trimming the sails and adjusting the rudder with our spiritual tools, getting ourselves back into alignment with who we are in truth so that we can receive that divine inspiration, that field of all possibility and potentiality to address anything that is before us. And when things get really challenging and overwhelming, it's important to remember this, that we can bring ourselves back into alignment. I came across a beautiful quote by Mother Teresa, and this just shows her sense of humor. Because she was often faced with all kinds of challenges, as you can imagine. She said, I know God will not give me anything I can't handle. I just wish God didn't trust me so much. Right? So, you were not born to be helpless. You were not born to be a victim of circumstance. You were born to be a spiritual master. Say that with me. I was born to be a spiritual master. Can you feel it? Oh, I just get God bumps when I say that, because I know I'm speaking the truth. We're born to wake up to who we are in truth, and we have powerful spiritual tools to support us with that whenever we come into contact with the currents of life, which is every day pretty much, right? There are all kinds of things going on. So it's really a way to bring our minds, our hearts back into alignment with who we are in truth, and to stand in the power, just allow that power surge to move through us, that creative power for our lives. So step one of living in alignment through a spiritual tool called intention. We talk about this a lot, but intention is really powerful. So let's look at it again. And here is a powerful intention. This one just ties in perfectly with today. I've heard this before, but I'm going to bring it back. I intend to align with the divine. Would you say that with me? I intend to align with the divine. Let's say it again, and let's say it with enthusiasm. I intend to align with the divine. Yes. Yeah. And so we use then our core values, which are discovered through our inner work, contemplation, like what are my core values. Dean led us through gave us a lot of examples last week, and an opportunity to kind of connect with our values. So if you want to revisit that, that's on Facebook. But when we align with our core values, when we use our core values as guiding principles to form our intentions, what we do is we open up to that surge of creative power because we are aligning ourselves with our divine nature. And so how do you know when you're out of alignment? How do you know? Well, I'll tell you how I know. I know that I have a value of loving kindness, and I have a very judgy thought. What happens is I can feel my energy drop. I can feel, it's almost as if somebody pulled the plug out of me, and it's a signal to me it's time to realign. I intend to align with the divine. Realign. So I have a couple of processes to do with that. I can do a spiritual mind treatment. If I find that I just want to do something really quick, I've learned a process of unplugging from whatever that plug went into, which is a false belief that was behind that thought. Or just say I'm unplugging from that thought. So I just imagine myself unplugging from that thought that was judgy, and bringing it back into me and breathing it. And I was showing you a process. I breathe it down through my center core, and I breathe it back up and out through the top. And then I pull in Christ consciousness energy down through my body and down into the ground. I use it with the breath, which I taught the first Sunday of this month. So unplug, realign. Unplug, realign. Something I can just do very quickly. Intention. The spiritual power of intention. I align with the divine. I intend to align with the divine. So by living in alignment again, we infuse our lives with meaning and purpose. And we are empowered to do the transformative shift that's necessary so that we can move on to the next step, which is activating our intentions. That means putting them into action. So activating our intentions to align with the divine and live out our values is moving ourselves from talking our talk to walking our talk, or walking our walk, walking our talk. Everybody knows that one, right? Have you heard that one before? We move from just talking our talk to walking our talk. Yeah. Because it's important to do both. In this spiritual teaching, we talk about treat and move your feet. We're talking about spiritual mind treatment. It's short for it is treat and move your feet. It's important to have the prayers, but but then move it into action. Do our prayers and action. So when we are aligning ourselves with our highest aspirations, with our values, and we take tangible steps to express that, miracles happen. Yeah? Because we're using all that we have been gifted with, all of these inherited qualities of our nature, in moving something forward that is of a high vibration and creating great good in the world. And let's remember that this expression is not static. It's fluid and changing as we continue to learn more and more about ourselves, as we continue to evolve. So we may get clearer and clearer about what we value, get clearer and clearer about what our aspirations are. They may shift and change over time, and they have. And that's why we keep talking about moving from good to great to grand. It's an evolutionary process. And it not only affects us, it affects the collective consciousness, because we are one. It affects everyone that we come into contact with. All right, so I want to give an example. I love illustrations because it just brings it home for me. I was reading in Optimist Daily about the country of Uruguay. I love Optimist Daily because it really keeps me in a state of optimism. What happened is, Uruguay, I think, is a great example, by the way, of activating values, putting them into action. They were, less than 2 decades ago, they were completely dependent on fossil fuels from other places. And they decided they no longer wanted to depend on others for that, and they wanted to clean up their environment. So under the leadership of two men, basically, there was a huge push to convince the population that this was a good idea to go to total renewable energy for electricity. So can you imagine convincing a lot of people who are kind of stuck in their ways, like, no, we want it to be the way it is? They're humans on this planet that just want to stay with the way it is because it's the way that they've always known, and so on. So there was a lot of resistance, but they kept pushing forward. And in less than 2 decades, they are now 98% renewable for their electricity. 98%. That's higher than any other country in the world. And there are some that I think have achieved like 90% of electricity. I think Brazil and, not Brazil, Iceland and Sweden and France, those three. So this was a really big deal, and this is not only was this huge transfer of energy that cleaned up the environment, it created thousands of jobs. They offered job training, training in all of these skills, and they have the strongest economy, the highest standard of living in South America as a result. So they stand as a role model, an international role model of not only how to move an entire country into this idea of renewable energy. They are a huge example of how rapidly someone or a group of people can activate their values if they choose to. Can you imagine the power of intention that these two men had who made this decision and how they had to bring everybody else along? Wow. Less than 2 decades, 98% of electricity. And it comes from things like biomass, solar, and wind parks. So, how do you know when you're out of alignment with your core values? And then how do you realign? Contemplate that for a moment and then share that with somebody next to you. How do you get out of alignment? How do you know you're out of alignment, let's say? And how do you get back into alignment? complete? Great. So let's end with that beautiful intention. I intend to align with the divine. Say that with me again. I intend to align with the divine. We can do that through aligning our intentions with our core values and then activating those intentions and bringing them into alignment. Remember, what we're aligning with is the full power and presence of the divine that surges through us and into creative expression. It's not some of the power, it's all of the power. And that's, quantum physicists are kind of affirm that kind of stuff. So actually, if you want to learn more about that aspect of it, there's a book called Quantum Revelation. I don't remember the name of the author, but it was mind-blowing for me as to who we are in truth. It's mind-blowing. I mean, we know this, but just to read the physics behind it is amazing. So I love all of you, and thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Oh, that was awesome. Very uplifting. So this is a song I wrote.